Buenas noches, estudiante. We are going to talk about subject pronouns in Spanish. Here is a table of subject pronouns in Spanish. The table has 10 subject pronouns that you need to get to know as soon as possible. The first one is yo. The second one is tú. Then we have usted, él, ella. Those are all singular. On the right side of the table, we have plural subject pronouns. Nosotros, nosotras, ustedes, ellos, and ellas. Let's look a little bit more at the singular side. The subject pronoun in Spanish, yo, means I in English. Think about how you know that a pronoun replaces a noun. So if you want to talk about yourself in Spanish, you would say yo. The next one is tú. Tú is what you use when you want to talk to someone and you want to say you. It is an informal pronoun, which means that you use it with certain people. We'll talk about that more later. Usted also means you, but it is formal. Again, you would use it to talk to someone who is formal, but we'll talk about that some more later. Él means he. Notice the word él has an accent mark over the E. That is very important that you include that accent mark. Otherwise, it changes the meaning of the word. Ella means she. Those are all singular subject pronouns. Now let's look over at the right side of the table. We'll talk about the plural ones. Nosotros is the subject pronoun you would use to say we. Nosotras is also we, and we'll talk about the difference between those two later. Ustedes means you, but it's a plural you, so it's like saying you all or you guys. Ellos means they, and ellas means they. We'll talk about the difference between those later. Now, get out your note guide and your Avancemos textbook as a reference. At the top of your note guide, it has a chart, just like the one at the top of this PowerPoint page. Notice it says yo equals. I would like you to write in the English pronoun that yo means. So next to yo equals, you'll write I. Next to tú equals, you'll write you, informal, and so on. Take a minute, pause the video, and fill in the chart at the top of the note guide. Let's talk about who you would be discussing a conversation with if you're using tú. Remember that tú means you. If you're talking to a friend, a family member, or someone younger than you, you would say tú. Usted also means you. You use usted as a formal way of talking to someone. Remember to use usted if you're talking to someone you don't know, someone older, or someone you want to show respect to. Use ustedes to say you all, to talk to a group of people. So that's a plural you. Remember, it's like saying you guys if you're talking to a group of people. If you're talking about someone, you can say he or she, él or ella. We also have nosotros, which means we, and ellos, which means they. When you are talking about a group of males or a mixed group of males and females, you want to use the masculine form. Notice that nosotros ends in os and ellos ends in os. Those are masculine forms. So those are if it's all a group of males or a group of males and females. Use nosotras, which means we, and ellas, which means they, when you are talking about a group of all females. Notice you're using a feminine form of these subject pronouns. Nosotras ends in as, and ellas ends in as. There cannot be a boy in the group if you want to say we using nosotras or they using ellas. Practiquemos. What subject pronoun should you use to talk about yourself? Think about which pronoun you would use, and you can use the chart in your notes guide to look back over what those mean. The best choice would be yo, because yo means I. Which subject pronoun should you use to talk to your best friend? So think about you're having a conversation with your best friend. You're talking to them. Which pronoun should you use? To is the best choice. If you're talking to your friend, you want to say you, and remember that the to form is informal. You are not formal with your best friend. You are informal. Which subject pronoun should you use to talk about your brothers? Okay, now you're not talking to them, you're talking about them. And they are both male. Ellos is the best choice. Ellos means they. So if you're talking about your brothers to someone else, you would say they. And ellos, because they are both boys. Practiquemos más. What subject pronoun should you use to talk about your sisters? Remember, you're talking about them, not to them, and they are both girls. Ellas is the best choice, because if you're talking about them, you would say they, and since they are both girls, you use a feminine form of the pronoun, ellas. What subject pronoun should you use to talk to your parents? Now you're having a discussion, talking to your parents, not about them. There's more than one, and when you're talking to someone, you want to use some form of you. Because this is plural, we would use ustedes. Remember, when you talk to someone, you want to use a form of the you. Ustedes is best when you're talking to more than one person. Which subject pronoun should you use to talk about you and your friend? Now think about how this is a group of people. You are one in the group, and someone else is in the group. We have more than one person, which means it's plural. And if you are in the group, it's always we. Nosotros would be the best choice here. Now the only reason you would use nosotras is if you are a girl and your friend is a girl. Which subject pronoun should you use to talk about a group of friends? Now you're talking about them, not to them. Usually a group of friends will include males and females, so ellos is the best choice here. Ellos because it's the masculine form, and when you have a mixture of boys and girls in the group, you use the masculine form. Now here's another situation when you're talking to someone. What pronoun should you use when you talk to a teacher? Remember that a teacher is someone you want to be formal with. Usted is the best choice because a teacher is someone to whom you should show respect. So you shouldn't use the to form with a teacher. And the last one, to talk about your dad. Remember, you're not talking to him, you are talking about him, and he is one person. So you would say he. In Spanish, él. Once again, notice that there's an accent mark over the E in the word él. Remember, that's very important, or it will change the meaning of the word. Here is a list of people to talk to or about, and decide which subject pronoun you should use. Think back. Which subject pronoun would you use to talk about yourself? Which would you use to talk to your best friend? Now remember, when you talk to someone, you want to use some form of the word you. Which pronoun would you use to talk about your brothers? To talk about your sisters? What about to talk to your parents? To talk about you and your friend? To talk to a group of friends? To talk to a teacher? Or to talk about your dad? Can you answer all of these on your own? I suggest you pause the video and think if you can come up with the answer on your own. If you have additional questions, See the notes provided on page 37 of your Avancemos textbook. At this time, the video is over, so you should fill out the rest of your note guides, coming up with the proper subject pronoun, depending on who you're talking to or who you are talking about. Buenas noches.